power, and yet it performs calculations better than any large supercomputer. So it's a mystery. How is the brain wired up? And if we can figure that out, what can we do with it to enhance our mental capability? The visual part of the brain is way in the back, for example. Why is the brain constructed the way it is? Is this nothing but an accident of evolution? Well, one way to look at it is through evolution. That is, the back of the brain is the so-called reptilian brain, the most ancient, primitive part of the brain that governs balance, territoriality, mating. And so the very back of the brain is also the kind of brain that you find in reptiles. Now, when I was a child, I would go to the science museum and look at the snakes sometimes, and they would stare back at me. And I would wonder, what are they thinking about? Well, I think now I know. What they're thinking about was, is this person lunch? Then we have the center part of the brain going forward, and that's the so-called monkey brain, the mammalian brain, the brain of emotions, the brain of social hierarchies. And then finally, the front of the brain is the human brain, especially the prefrontal cortex. This is where rational thinking is. And when you ask yourself the question, where am I anyway? The answer is right behind your forehead. That's where you really are. Well, I have a theory of consciousness which tries to wrap it all up together. There have been about 20,000 or so papers written about consciousness and no consensus. Never in the history of science have so many people devoted so much time to produce so little. Well, I'm a physicist, and when we physicists look at a mysterious object, the first thing we try to do is to create a model of this object in space. And then we hit the play button and run it forward in time. This is how Newton was able to come up with the theory.
Chapter 1 Pectoral region, axilla, shoulder, and upper limb. The anterior surface of the rib cage, plate 19. Figure 19, the anterior surface of the sternum and ribs. Note 1, the costal cartilages and the manner in which they articulate with the sternum. 2, the jugular notch, also called the suprasternal notch, along the superior border of the manubrium. 3, lateral to the manubrium, the clavicle articulates into the clavicular notch, and just below this, the first rib articulates with the lateral surface of the manubrium. 4. Rib 2 articulates with the sternum lateral to the sternal angle, i.e. between the manubrium and body of the sternum. 5. Ribs 4, 5, and 6 articulate on the body of the sternum, and rib 7, joined by the costal margins of ribs 8, 9, and 10, attaches to the junction of the xiphoid process and sternal body, the xiphosternal junction. 6. The origin of the pectoralis major muscle attaches along the medial half of the clavicle and lateral 1/3 of the manubrium and body of the sternum. 7. The pectoralis minor muscle inserts on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th ribs, and the biceps brachii and coracobrachialis muscles attach just above the glenoid fossa, supraglenoid tubercle, while the triceps arises from the infraglenoid tubercle below the glenoid fossa. From C.D. Clementi. Gray's Anatomy, 30th American edition. Philadelphia, Leah and Febiger, 1985. Clavicular notch. Sternal angle. Vertebrosternal. Or true ribs, 1 to 7. Costal. Cartilages. Vertebrochondral. Or false ribs, 8 to 10. Vertebral or floating ribs, 11 and 12. Xiphoid process. Serratus anterior. Subscapularis. Subclavius. Triceps brachii. Glenoid. Fossa. Biceps brachii. And coracobrachialis. Pectoralis. Minor. Deltoid. Trapezius. Sternocleidomastoid. Jugular. Notch. Manubrium. Body. Pectoralis. Major. Pectoralis minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. LWBK 429 underscore C01 underscore P1-51.I'm 23 WBK 429 underscore C01 underscore P1-51.I'm 23 November 10th 09 426 and 15 seconds PM January 10th 09 426 and 15 seconds PM. Chapter 1 Pectoral region, axilla, shoulder, and upper limb. Plate 20 lateral thoracic wall and superficial axilla. Figure 20 lateral aspect of the upper right thoracic wall and the superficial axillary structures. Coracobrachialis. Muscle deltoid, muscle biceps, muscle pectoralis, major muscle. Musculocutaneous nerve. Lateral cord contribution to median nerve. Ulnar nerve. Axillary vein. Axillary lymph nodes. Median nerve. Medial antebrachial. Cutaneous nerve. Basilic vein. Medial brachial. Cutaneous. Nerve. Latissimus dorsi. Muscle. Intercostobrachial. Nerve T2. Long thoracic nerve. Serratus. Anterior muscle. Ninth rib origin. Pectoralis minor. Muscle. Pectoralis major muscle. Serratus anterior. Muscle. Pectoralis. Major muscle. Abdominal part. Rectus sheath. Anterior layer. External oblique muscle. Part arising from fifth rib. Serratus anterior muscle. Seventh rib origin external oblique muscle. Latissimus dorsi. Muscle. Lateral cutaneous branch. Of the sixth intercostal nerve. Lateral cutaneous. Branch of the fifth. Intercostal nerve. Lateral cutaneous. Branch of the third. Intercostal nerve. Lateral cutaneous. Branch of the 10th. Intercostal nerve. Lateral cutaneous. Branch of the 8th. Intercostal nerve. Lateral cutaneous. Branch of the 6th. Intercostal nerve. Lateral cutaneous. Branch of the 4th. Intercostal nerve. Thoracoepigastric vein. Lateral thoracic artery. Muscle origin insertion innervation action. Pectoralis minor coracoid process of scapular ribs 2 to 5 medial pectoral nerve protracts scapula, elevates. C8, T1, ribs. Serratus anterior fleshy slips from upper medial border of scapula long thoracic nerve protracts and rotates scapula. 9 ribs, C5, C6, C7, hold scapula close to thoracic wall. LWBK 429 underscore C01 underscore P1-51.I'm 24 WBK 429 underscore C01 underscore P1-51.I'm 24 November 10th 09 426 and 16 seconds PM January 10th 09 426 and 16 seconds PM. Chapter 1 Pectoral region, axilla, shoulder, and upper limb. The pectoral muscles, intact and reflected. Serratus anterior muscle plate 21. Clavicle. Subclavius muscle. Pectoralis minor muscle. Pectoralis major. Muscle. Internal. Intercostal muscle. Pectoralis. Major muscle. Abdominal part. Rectus sheath. Anterior layer. 11th rib. External. Intercostal. Muscle. Latissimus. Dorsi muscle. Serratus anterior muscle. Teres major muscle. Subscapularis muscle. Coracobrachialis muscle. Pectoralis major muscle. Deltoid muscle. Serratus anterior muscle. Superior part. Coracoid process. Figure 21.2 The subscapularis and serratus anterior muscles, right lateral view. Sternocleidomastoid muscle. Subclavius muscle. Internal intercostal muscles. External intercostal muscles. Pectoralis minor muscle. Pectoralis major muscle. External oblique muscle. Rectus abdominis muscle. Latissimus dorsi muscle. Serratus anterior muscle. Serratus anterior muscle. Subscapularis muscle. Teres major muscle. Coracobrachialis muscle. Biceps brachii muscle. Short head. Biceps brachii. Long head. Deltoid muscle. 2, 4, V, 6, 7. Pectoralis major muscle. Pectoralis minor muscle. Acromion. Clavicle. Posterior scalene muscle. Levator scapulae muscle. Middle scalene muscle. Anterior scalene muscle. Omohyoid muscle. Inferior belly. Figure 21.1 Pectoralis minor. Serratus anterior and latissimus. Dorsi muscles, lateral view, right. Note that the pectoralis major muscle has been reflected, revealing 1. The pectoralis minor muscle extending from coracoid process to the 2nd to 6th ribs, potential energy watts. 2. The serratus anterior, forming the medial wall of the axilla. LWBK 429 underscore C01 underscore P1-51.I'm 25 WBK 429 underscore C01 underscore P1-51.I'm 25 November 10th 09 426 and 22 seconds PM January 10th 09 426 and 22 seconds PM. January 10th 09 426 and 22 seconds PM. Sixth ribs, potential energy watts. 2. The serratus anterior, forming the medial wall of the axilla. Krypton graphene pink muscle. LWBK429_C01_P1-51-25 November 10th 09 426 and 22 seconds p.m. January 10th 09 426 and 22 seconds p.m.
Theory of gravity. This is how Einstein came up with relativity. So I tried to use this in terms of the human brain and evolution. So what I'm saying is I have a new theory of consciousness based on evolution. And that is, consciousness is the number of feedback loops required to create a model of your position in space, with relationship to other organisms, and finally in relationship to time. So think of the consciousness of a thermostat. I believe that even a lowly thermostat has one unit of consciousness. That is, it senses the temperature around it. And then we have a flower. A flower has maybe 10 units of consciousness. It has to understand the temperature, the weather, humidity, where gravity is pointing. And then finally we go to the reptilian brain, which I call level 1 consciousness. And reptiles basically have a very good understanding of their position in space, especially because they have to lunge out and grab prey. Then we have level 2 consciousness, the monkey consciousness, the consciousness of emotions, social hierarchies. Where are we in relationship to the tribe? And then where are we as humans? As humans, we are at level 3. We run simulations into the future. Animals apparently don't do this. They don't plan to hibernate. They don't plan the next day's agenda. They have no conception of tomorrow to the best of our ability, but that's what our brain does. Our brain is a prediction machine. And so when we look at the evolution from the reptilian brain to the mammalian brain to the prefrontal cortex, we realize that it's the process of understanding our position in space, with respect to others, that is emotions, and finally running simulations into the future.